This is the world's youngest billionaire, at only 8 months old. Not only does he have a nanny providing 24/7 care, but his hairbrush is encrusted with diamonds, and even his lip balm is custom-made. Soon 3 robbers set their sights on this baby. Then they disguised themselves as photographers and arrived at the villa. But why does this face look so much like the one in the brochure? Could it be that the picture was drawn based on him? The baby quickly gave him a warm greeting. The man made up an excuse to send the family and the housekeeper away. Then he turned around and passed the baby out the window. After waiting a while, the family came back in, but all they found was a note left by the robbers. The baby was quickly taken to their hideout by the 3 robbers. The boss instructed Jack and Kevin to take good care of the baby, but those 2 idiots had no clue. They turned around and asked the boss how to test the temperature of the milk.
Try it on some skin first.
Jack snatched Kevin's hat off. The baby giggled at their antics. To avoid being noticed, the boss told Kevin to put the baby to sleep, but the baby didn't fall asleep while he started snoring. Then the baby crawled along the stairs, and unbelievably made his way to the roof. Drool dripped down from the skylight onto the boss's neck. The boss thought it was Jack spitting on him, and slapped Jack, leaving him completely bewildered. Then the 2 looked up, and were so terrified that they jumped right off the couch. The 3 of them hurriedly ran towards the roof, but by this time the baby had already crawled onto a plank leading to another building. The first to catch up was the boss, who was immediately struck. After the baby successfully crawled down the plank gave the boss a second blow, and enraged Jack threw the plank away. Then the 2 of them lifted the boss, preparing to jump across with him. Jack and Kevin landed safely, but the boss... Meanwhile, the baby had already taken the elevator down, and crawled right past the 3 bumbling thieves. As the tormented boss lifted his head, the baby had already crawled into the middle of the road. The 8-month-old baby actually crawled onto the road. The 3 bumbling thieves chasing after him were terrified. Thankfully, the baby avoided the oncoming cars, and safely made his way into the zoo. But the 3 bumbling thieves weren't so lucky. They wanted to catch the baby as quickly as possible, but in the next moment... the baby crawled into the gorilla's enclosure. The gorilla didn't harm the baby. Instead, it handed him an apple. All natural, no pollution, safe to eat. With $5 million in sight, the 3 had to use all their tricks. First, Jack grabbed the baby's shoelace. Just as the baby was within reach, the gorilla flashed to the fence. And then... Jack's hand was done for. Next, Kevin used a mop to lift the baby. Just as the baby was about to slide over, the gorilla snatched the baby away. And then... Seeing his 2 underlings failing miserably, the boss had no choice but to step in himself. He waited for the gorilla to fall asleep while holding the baby, and tried to pull the baby out directly, but ended up waking the gorilla. Then... the boss found himself embedded in the cage. Afterward, the baby followed the gorilla to a small gate. Under the gorilla's watchful gaze, the baby safely left the zoo. The 3 bumbling thieves chased after him in a frenzy. Finally, they caught the baby inside a sewer pipe. Just as the 3 were feeling relieved, they noticed the police eyeing their car parked on the side of the road. The boss hurriedly hid the baby under his coat. The police approached and asked if the car on the side of the road was theirs.
Yes, battery.
When the police asked if they had seen a missing baby, the baby lit the boss's lighter.
Got a bad heart.
At that moment, the police seemed to smell something cooking.
You sure can tell summer's here. People got those barbecues going.
Jack and Kevin quickly went with the police to move the car. The feeling of smoke rising from his pants almost brought tears to the boss's eyes. Meanwhile, the baby had quietly crawled out. Finally, after sending off the 2 officers, the boss hurriedly threw open his coat. The man's crotch caught fire. Jack and Kevin, seeing that they couldn't put it out with their hands, directly threw the boss to the ground, and then started stomping on him. The fire was out, but judging by the way the boss was walking, he might have to squat to pee from now on. Meanwhile, the baby they had stolen was attracted by a donut, and crawled onto a steel beam at a construction site. By the time Jack arrived, the baby was already being lifted into the air with the beam. The 3 bumbling thieves were shocked out of their wits when they saw this. They quickly got on the elevator to catch up with the baby, but the height was so terrifying that Jack nearly wet his diaper, while the baby just laughed with glee. When the beam reached the right height, the boss gave Jack a shove onto the beam, and in the next second, the baby was lifted off the beam, and slid onto the top of the elevator. To save Jack, who was hanging on the beam, Kevin reached out to grab him, but accidentally fell out himself, and in the next moment... Luckily a wooden plank saved him. Just then Jack was also thrown back by the beam, but before he could celebrate, the boss pushed him onto the elevator again, only to have him jump right into a trash bin, thankfully saving his life. At this moment the boss also spotted the baby, but just as he was about to grab the baby, a hammer hit him, making him dizzy, and he instinctively pulled the nearby rope, unexpectedly starting the cement mixer. In the next second, he got a free cement bath. Just then a tool delivery flatbed came down, and the baby climbed onto it. With the $5 million within reach, the furious boss jumped onto the crane's steel cable. But surprises come when least expected. It was already the end of the workday, and the workers shut down the crane. At this point, the baby had safely reached the ground, leaving the boss alone in the air admiring the sunset. Finally, the baby's parents successfully found him, and with the baby's help, the three bumbling thieves were surrounded by the police. There are screws in the prison waiting for them to tighten.